which is really $1 per kilo. And distribution is now taking place. You can do so at the River Road Distribution Center every Monday and Tuesday. You can also collect your fertilizers at the St. David's Cocoa Station in Bellevue on Wednesdays and on Thursdays. And in Maribor, you can purchase your fertilizers every day. The third is the plant sale. Those plant sales are ongoing at our propagation stations at Ashenden, at Maribor, at Maran, and at Bolong. And finally, we also have the Agricultural Development Assistance Program, which is presently ongoing, which provides our farmers with cleaning up the land, with planting, with cutting of the overhead branches, and so on. And that is ongoing right now. For your information, farmers, I want to inform you that we have 4 districts, as I mentioned before. They are referred to as the North. The North District comprises St. Mark's and St. Patrick. The telephone number there is 442-9316. So you can simply call. The East District, which is St. Andrew, the number there is 442-7249. The South District comprises St. David and part of St. George, and the number there is 440-4862. And the West comprises part of St. George, specifically Annandale and Bolio, and St. John. And the number there is 444-9049. We also have our Facebook page, and therefore you can also send any message that you wish to our Facebook page. So finally, let me just say that in terms of what else is happening in the Ministry of Agriculture, we consider to be of importance to you. After the holidays, we plan to have a number of area meetings with our farmers, and therefore you will be informed in detail afterwards. Just to also inform you that we are going to send 3 of our young farmers to Dominica this month, I think from the 19th of this month, for our 3-day symposium. They're going to participate in a 3-day symposium in an OECS Youth in Agriculture meeting. One of them has been nominated to be the OECS Youth Farmer of the Year. And finally, I would want to indicate to the people of Grenada that the government of Guyana would have offered Grenada 8 scholarships leading to diploma and certificates in different aspects of agriculture. These scholarships are to be taken up as of September of this year, and we are putting plans in place to ensure that we take up these scholarships. So thank you very much. These are my comments, or if I should say my official statement, and I do hope that with the package that is being provided here this morning, our farmers would feel the need and will get the vibes and be encouraged to get back to the land and to work and to produce, and let us all work together to rebuild our agriculture sector. Thank you very much indeed.
Minister, for your updates, and I want to say congratulations to the nominee for the OECS Youth in Agriculture Award, and of course the 8 scholarship awardees. I know those will be announced shortly or when they've been finalized, so we look forward to that as well. We now move to the Ministry of Finance. We have some updates there for you post Hurricane Beryl. So Minister Cornwall.
A pleasant good morning to our listeners in Grenada, Carriacou, Peter Martinic, and the diaspora, and those of us here in the room. Previously, we would have basically talked about post-Hurricane Beryl incentive package phase 1, where we talked about incentives on food, packages, clothing, and other small household items. Today, we are going to be talking about post-Hurricane Beryl incentives package phase 2, that deals with reconstruction of physical infrastructure. I will begin by saying that we will grant a waiver of VAT, that's value-added tax, on local purchases. That's for the persons who will be buying materials and so on to rebuild a home. And those building materials could include cement, steel, lumber, blocks, galvanized sheets, screws, etc., meaning there might be a lot more of the materials that are involved, and we cannot list all of them. We're also going to be waiving the duties on windows, doors, tiles, plumbing, fixtures, electrical supplies, etc. Household furnishings, we are looking at cabinets, countertops, furnitures, and other materials that we needed to furnish your house. There also would be a waiver on large household appliances. Again, I'll detail those later on in the presentation. And thirdly, we'll look at equipment and replacement parts for generators, air conditioning units, replacement of car parts. For those of us who would be importing materials from other countries to rebuild your homes, again, we would actually afford the waiver of CET, that's Common External Tariff, VAT, that's value-added tax, CSC, Customs Service Charge on imported items. And these items are similar to those that I've mentioned that we are looking to purchase locally. They include cement, lumber, blocks, galvanized sheets, screws, etc. Doors, windows, tiles, plumbing, and electrical supplies. Again, household furnishings will include the cabinet, the countertops, the furnishings, etc. And again, the large household items. Equipment and replacement parts, again, it would be related to generators, air conditioning units, replacement of car parts. There are some limitations, and I'll outline what these limitations are. Beneficiaries must have been directly affected by Hurricane Beryl. Concessions on large household items or appliances related to things like refrigerators, stove, washers, television, etc., and are limited to one of each of these items per household. All beneficiaries of the concession program are required to comply with the building code and practices as approved by the government. And finally, these items are not for resale purposes. In other words, you cannot benefit from the concessions and resell those to other persons. I move on now to support for business reactivation. Waiver of taxes on machinery and equipment. There will be an implementation of 100% waiver of CET, VAT, CSC, excise tax, where applicable, to businesses and machinery and equipment imported to replace that which was damaged or destroyed as a result of Hurricane Beryl. Where local purchases are made, the VAT will be waived. Beryl Economic Support Secretariat. A Beryl Economic Support Secretariat will be set up on Carriacou and on mainland to, inter alia, receive application from individuals and businesses to access this incentive program. Individuals and businesses must submit an application to BESS, that's the Business Economic Support Secretariat, on Carriacou or responsible agency on mainland Grenada, along with the relevant documents for processing. The Planning and Development Authority or other relevant institution will conduct audits of all properties benefiting from the concessions. Properties will be inspected as part of the assessment process. Tax incentive support. There will be a waiver on all VAT requirements, that's collect, file, or remit, will be granted to businesses affected by Hurricane Beryl for the period June 1st to December 31st, 2024. In Grenada, the affected businesses must apply to the Inland Revenue Department for the waiver. The waiver will be granted if deemed necessary. On Carriacou and Petite Martinique, this waiver applies automatically to all businesses. VAT must not be charged during the period June 1st to 31st December 2024. Waiver of property taxes for 2025. There will be an implementation of 100% waiver of property tax on properties significantly affected by Hurricane Beryl, and that goes for both residential or commercial properties for 2025. These waivers apply to all properties in Grenada and Petit Martinique. Property owners in Grenada are required to request the waiver from the Inland Revenue Department. Properties will be assessed before waivers are granted. Other tax measures for Carriacou and Petit Martinique. As of June 1st to December 31st, 2024, waiver of all corporation income tax, like CIT, requirements for businesses are affected by Hurricane Beryl for the period June 1st to December 31st. And again, during December 31st, the deadline for businesses to file and remit outstanding annual stamp tax installation and pay, that's pay as you go, is extended to December 31st, 2024. Businesses on mainland Grenada are required to request this waiver or extension from the IRD, that's in the Revenue Department, if needed. Financial support. There will be a loan grant facility at the Grenada Development Bank. Our government will transfer each $25 million to the Grenada Development Bank to establish a business reactivation fund for businesses affected by Hurricane Beryl. These funds will be disbursed as part loan, part grant. The interest rate will be highly concessional. Financing provided will support construction, the purchase of capital goods, and working capital needs. The facility will come into effect on September 1st, 2024. The GD will provide more information in the coming weeks. Measures by other institutions. Provisions of 3 months unemployment benefit by the National Insurance Scheme. But again, to benefit from that, you must be an active paying member of your National Insurance Scheme contributions. If you're not, then that doesn't apply to you. Again, Grenada is a member of the Eastern Caribbean Central Bank, and I represent Grenada on the Monetary Council, and we have agreed to extend the moratorium on loans to persons affected by Hurricane Beryl. The relevant financial institutions will be engaging customers in this regard in the coming months. You may recall during the COVID period that the banks and credit unions would have extended a moratorium to borrowers so that they can basically negotiate with the lending institutions to afford them some breathing space for the payment of their loans. I thank you.
Thank you, Minister Cornwall, for those updates. Finance and businesses, VAT waiver on VAT for building supplies, etc. We will issue some summaries on our Facebook page so people can go back and review all that was said today. Thank you so much. And now we move to the Prime Minister, the Honorable Deacon Mitchell, for his contribution.
Thank you very much, Press Secretary, and good morning to our listeners and viewers who are with us this morning, those who are viewing online and those here present. I want to start off by thanking both Minister Andrews and Mr. Cornwall and their respective teams for the significant work that they've had to do to address responding to the challenges posed to our agriculture and fishing sector, and to the housing sector, the construction sector, as well as the business sector, both in Carriacou and Petit Martinique. I want to assure our citizens who are impacted by Hurricane Beryl that despite the fact that we are approaching the climax of the festive carnival season, that your government is hard at work, and notwithstanding that, making sure that we can treat with the issues that we know are impacting you negatively. And so I want to thank both ministers. The information as to what the respective incentive packages are, how you can access those packages, in the case of the farmers and the fishermen, the sums that you would be entitled to and how you get access to that will be provided to the farmers and the fishermen. So we ask you to remain in contact with the Ministry of Agriculture, the Ministry of Fisheries, with the team at the Ministry of Finance. In the case of Carriacou and Petit Martinique, We will ensure that adequate resources are dedicated from a personnel and secretarial point of view to ensure that our folks in Peachey Martinique and Carrickville are not disadvantaged, because we recognize that they are the ones who are impacted most by this. In addition to the packages that have been announced both by the Minister of Agriculture and Fisheries and by the Minister of Finance, we are also seeking cabinet approval to reduce the fees for lost or damaged passports that our citizens in Carrickville and Peachey Martinique and the other parishes that were impacted in Grenada by Hurricane Beryl will have to charge for essentially getting a new passport. We recognize that in many instances people's homes were completely destroyed or significantly damaged, and therefore there is a heightened risk that persons would have lost their passport. So in those circumstances, I will be seeking Cabinet's approval to reduce the fee for an adult 18 years and over from $700 to $350, and for a child 18 years and under from $500 to $250. All that a person will be required to do is to have a sworn statement, either in the form of a police report or an affidavit sworn indicating that they've lost their passport as a result of the passage of Hurricane Beryl. Naturally, the Immigration Department will check to verify that in fact your home or your residence were damaged or destroyed, and then we will seek to process the passport in an expeditious manner, because we do recognize there may be students, for example, who need to go back to study, who might have lost the passports of persons who may not have been at the time when the hurricane happened. So we want to assure citizens of Carrickville, Peachey Martinique, St. Patrick, St. Andrew, St. Mark that we are cognizant of this fact, and we will also be working to assist them in that regard. I intend to travel to Carrickville and Peachey Martinique on Friday, so that myself and the Minister of Finance and so on can engage again with the business community to bring them the news as to the response of the government to the meeting we had in Carrickville and Peachey Martinique with the business committee, so that we could share to them the government's initial responses, so that they could ask questions and get explanations as to how they access the fiscal incentives and packages that have been brought to them. I want to provide a general overview as well as to the current situation with relief. As you appreciate, it's a little over a month since the passage of Hurricane Beryl, and the relief efforts have been conducted and coordinated by NADMA in conjunction with the several donor agencies that are on island. As we would expect with these situations, as time goes on, many of the donor agencies are going to either scale down or effectively leave the island. We have to appreciate, however, that we are actually really only now entering the hurricane season. And so the National Disaster Management Agency is going to be working on implementing a contingency plan, particularly for Carrickville and Peachey Martinique, in the event, and we hope that doesn't happen, that we face another potential storm or hurricane. And so we have to appreciate that it will be very vital for us to try as much as possible to repair large buildings in Carrickville and Peachey Martinique, in particular of schools, because we may need them to continue to act or serve as shelters in the event we face another storm or another hurricane during the season. I'm also going to indicate to the public in some instances, should we face another storm or another hurricane, that there will be mandatory evacuation from some parts of Carrickville and Peachey Martinique, simply because we will not be able to provide the type of services or the protection that is required to citizens there in the event we face another hurricane or storm. We don't. But should we get to a point where it is clear that within 24 hours or 36 hours that we will face such a situation, we will have no choice but mandatory evacuation. To that extent, the Ministry for Disaster Management and NADMA is working on this contingency plan. We intend to work particularly with the business community as well as the logistics and transportation community, the boating community in particular, in Carrickville and Peachey Martinique, because it means we have to, if it gets to that, potentially move significant numbers of persons out of Carrickville and Peachey Martinique and into Grenada, should we face a situation where Carrickville and Peachey Martinique is projected to be directly impacted by any future hurricane or storm during this period. Having said that, we are hoping that we don't actually have to get to the point of having to implement the contingency plan. We have asked the CDEMA, who is obviously our main regional partner in disaster management, to consider a further extension of sea level personnel in Grenada, at least potentially perhaps to as far as September, to assist us with ensuring that we can continue to manage the situation properly. But I just want to point out a couple of things. NADMA is currently still focusing very much on the relief efforts. The government of Grenada itself will be ultimately responsible for working with our citizens when it comes to the rebuilding effort. And to that extent, various government departments and ministries are actively taking steps to address this matter. The Minister for Education at the press brief last week indicated the steps that have been taken specifically in relation to Carriacou and Petite Martinique. I want to repeat them. There are a number of schools that we believe we should be able to repair, certainly if not by the first week of September, by the middle to the end of September, in the hope that the students in Carriacou and Petite Martinique can continue their schooling, even if on a shift system in Carriacou and Petite Martinique. We are hoping to expedite the process for having the contractors on site as early as next week. We are expecting to have our consultants report detailing the work to be done and the scope of those works by Monday or Tuesday, bearing in mind it's Carnival. But we certainly expect that we should be able to have contractors selected and on site in Carriacou and Petite Martinique from next week to start addressing repairs to some of these schools. As much as possible, we are going to be seeking to use contractors from Carriacou and Petite Martinique because it is important for us to ensure that we can stimulate economic activity on the island in circumstances where they may not have the bandwidth to carry out the work, either because the scope is too large. Then we will look to retain contractors from Grenada if necessary to do so. Similarly, as it relates to the health facilities on the island, it is critical for us to ensure that we can repair and rebuild those facilities as quickly as possible, as well as central government facilities. To that end, the Guyana Defence Force has been doing humans work in Carriacou in particular. They have done significant work as of last Sunday when I visited Carriacou. They had already made significant strides in repairing the main government administrative building in Hillsborough. They had already covered the magistrate's court as well as the police station, and they had done significant work on the Hillsborough Secondary School. So again, I just want to take the opportunity to thank President Ali and his team and the members of the Guyana Defence Force for the tremendous work that they have been doing in Carriacou to assist us in this process. In the next coming weeks, we will be announcing further measures that we will be taking specifically as it relates to housing, because we recognize that in many instances a lot of persons are still badly impacted by Hurricane Beryl and are obviously homeless, particularly in Carriacou and Petite Martinique, and we need to remind ourselves of that fact as we enter the festive and the carnival season, that there are hundreds of our citizens who are significantly disadvantaged as a result of Hurricane Beryl. So the government will be announcing in the coming weeks how it intends to help our citizens with the housing situation. I just want to emphasize something that the Minister of Finance said, and I'm going to repeat it. We cannot build back homes that are substandard or do not have the capacity to withstand any significant hurricane strength force winds. And so it will be crucial, as part of the fiscal incentives packages that have been announced here today, that citizens understand the need to ensure that their contractors, their consultants and their designers design and construct and build homes that as much as possible can resist Category 3, Category 4 hurricane force winds. And roofing is the major challenge. And so they need to ensure that the OECS building code is enforced. It's something that we intend to link the concessions to. We are not going to give people concessions to simply build back substandard buildings that leave us coming out of the situation worse off than when we entered this in. We recognize a lot of education is going to have to be done, but we are certainly trying to incentivize the right action by ensuring that people who get the concessions appreciate that the getting of the concessions is linked to ensuring that your contractor and you build to standards that can withstand the risk associated with Category 3 and 4 type hurricanes. So this is, in summary, my comments for today. Before I end, I want to again take the opportunity to congratulate Lyndon Victor on his bronze medal. It was a long time coming, but your dedication, your persistence, your perseverance, your willingness to lay it all on the line is a true testament of the Grenadian spirit. I'm very elated that your family, members of your family were with you in Paris and got the opportunity to witness your performance. I know that meant a lot to you. And so on behalf of the government and people of Grenada, I want to extend again our public and heartfelt congratulations to you. You truly represent the best of Grenada. There are two other Grenadian athletes who I know Grenadians are waiting with bated breath. This afternoon, the legendary Kirani James, I want to take the opportunity in advance to congratulate him for making all of us extremely proud to be Grenadians. Your performance thus far, your continuation of being perhaps one of the best gentlemen that Grenada and the region has ever produced on the international stage continues to shine. And you have shown that with perseverance, with persistence, with faith, with dedication, with hard work, with going through all of the trials and tribulations you've had to go through, including losing your coach, including overcoming medical challenges, that you are still the best in the world. So I want to congratulate you in advance of the race. I know Gov will be crazy this afternoon. I'm saying congratulations in advance. And of course, the man from the East, we have him on the 8th of August, and I know he too. As someone said, we have to speak it into existence. So I expect that he too will deliver for himself, for his family, for his parish, for his country and his region. So I'm saying best wishes from all of us here in Grenada to our star athletes. You truly have made us proud. You truly have made us happy. And we look forward to welcoming you home after the Olympics finished. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. And now we move to our journalists. We have 4 journalists online joining us this morning. Welcome, journalists. We're going to take your questions at this time, if you have any. I see Beverly Telesford from GBN, Callistra Farie, Linda Straker, you're also with us, and Mr. Peter Richards. If you have questions at this time, we will take them. Go ahead, Linda. I see your hand. You may proceed with your question.
Good morning to you and the panel. I have a question for each minister. Should I ask it all together or ask?
No, let's take one at a time. Let's take finance first, and then we could get a response, and then we'll take the other one for the Minister of Agriculture.
Thank you for that. My first question is, in the early days following the immediate passage of the hurricane, one of the things that was said is that the government will trigger the escape clause in the Fiscal Resilience Act. We're into August, and I do pay attention to the Government Gazette weekly. I have not seen that order. Has the government changed its mind when it comes to triggering that clause?
Okay, if I recall, we did say that we are going to consider utilizing this measure if needs be. So far, we have decided to take our time step by step in making sure that we do not just go out there and spend government resources or utilize the measures without having in place the need to. So I would say yes, we have still plans to look at those measures because we have these measures or access to those measures if need be. We have started, as you can see, announcing measures that would help the citizens of Grenada, Carriacou, and Petite-Matic in rebuilding their lives. Government is foregoing a significant amount of revenue by doing so, and again, government cannot be run without revenues. So I just want you to bear that in mind. The so-called funds that we have received thus far, and for some people out there, a lot of money. I want to caution that this lot of money syndrome would prove that we still need a lot more money than we have currently to real Carriacou, Petite-Matic, and Grenada. And I'm not even at St. Patrick East. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister.
The question to you
Can I share your
is,
question for the Minister of Agriculture?
It's Linda. It's Linda, not Minister.
Sorry, Linda. Your question
Okay.
for the Minister for Agriculture.
I didn't hear clearly what you said.
No, I said you can proceed with your next question for the Minister for Agriculture.
Okay, well, before we proceed, please let the person doing the technical, something is wrong with the microphones this morning because it keeps on going up and down, so they probably should check into that.
All right, thank you.
My question for the Minister for Agriculture is actually linked to what the Minister of Finance would have said. The Minister of Agriculture mentioned $11.6 million that will be distributed, utilized to the average farmer or the fisher folks. Can he tell us whether or not the money for the fisher folk is from the CCREF course funding premium that we have? And would if the money for the agricultural people, is this from the CREF funding or the emergency funding and Section 22 of the Public Management Act? And when will government be going to the Parliament to get the necessary approval to supplementary budget?
All right, thank you, Linda, for your question. But actually, the best person to answer that is the Minister of Finance, not the Minister of Agriculture. Anytime you talk about money, you have to go to the Minister of Finance, But be that as it may, well, first of all, let me say, all expenditure comes from what is referred to as the consolidated fund. So whatever money government gets, it goes into the treasury. It's the part of the consolidated fund, and expenditures are made out of that fund. In government, we do not earmark resources. So we do not say, for example, that a particular source of income goes for a particular expenditure. That doesn't happen. Obviously, under the CRIF payout, some monies were for the fishing industry. Good. So theoretically, it would seem that those money have to be used for that purpose, but it is not correct, in my opinion, to say that money is specifically used for the fishing. It's all part of the consolidated fund, and from there we have monies that we can use for whatever expenditure government needs to incur. We have prepared a supplementary estimate, good, and my understanding is that I think sometime in September, Minister of Finance, sometime in September we will go towards Parliament for the approval of the supplementary estimates, which include all of those expenditures that I would have announced for the agricultural sector.
If I may add further clarity to the question, the government is required to go to Parliament at some point in time to get approval for bringing in all the grants resources, including the CRIF insurance fund, to account, meaning that all the expenditure that we are going to be incurring will be backed by some form of financing. We are currently in the middle of budget implementation, which was disrupted by Beryl. Again, we had to reassign funds within the budget to deal with certain things. And therefore, we would need to go back to Parliament through the Finance Committee to get approval for a supplemental budget, which will come sometime in September. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. We now move to Calistro or Peter Regis. If you have a question, you may proceed at this time.
So we're encouraging everyone to, anticipate where it's can, and something that we're doing when we just went through a hurricane.
All right. No.
Linda said she had requested.
Linda, you have another question?
Yes, I did.
Oh, go ahead.
I said I'd had for each one of the ministers. including
Okay,
the Prime
sure.
Minister.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
But in the aftermath of Hurricane Ivan 20 years ago, one of the things that were established in a temporary measure, I think it was for a period of 5 years, was the establishment of the Agency for Reconstruction and Development, the ARD. That law has since been repealed to the best of my knowledge. Now, we have now had buried, and some of the same circumstances that established back then established today. But one of the things that was done is the ARD, along with other international donors, being responsible for training persons in the construction industry in building properly to fit Category 3 to 5 hurricane. Can the Prime Minister tell us, because he is responsible, I think, for physical planning in the authority, Will government consider establishing such an agency again, and how government plans to ensure that the houses that will be rebuilt are complying with the building code, which is the OECS building code that Grenada adopted?
All right, so the simple answer to the question is yes, the government is considering whether it will activate and amend the Agency for Reconstruction and Development legislation that was created back in 2005 after the passage of Hurricane Ivan. So it is under consideration, meaning we're considering it. We have not made a determination on that as yet. It is only a month since the passage. I think the government has two tools that are available to it to ensure that persons build homes, not just people who are rebuilding as a result of the damage caused by Hurricane Beryl, but for all construction going forward. There are two tools really. One is a carrot tool, which is to incentivize persons, and one is an enforcement tool, which is a stick. So certainly for those persons who've been impacted by Hurricane Beryl, the carrot tool is to incentivize them building to the appropriate code via the tax incentives that have been announced by the Minister of Finance. So if you want to get the tax incentives, you have to ensure that you are building to the appropriate code. You need to ensure, therefore, the incentives on things like hurricane straps, on using screws perhaps instead of nails, on the type of grade of wood or sheet or zinc sheets that needs to be used, on ensuring that the design for the homes are designed in such a way that it is less likely to suffer damage, those kinds of things, on ensuring that persons who build in flood-prone areas don't do so. So that's kind of the incentives approach. The enforcement approach is ensuring that the legislation has the necessary teeth. So if it means amending the Physical Development Act to give more enforcement strength to the Planning Development Authority to ensure that they can stop or discourage construction that does not comply with the plans or that does not comply with the building code, that is something that we would absolutely need to do. And it may also mean changing some of the culture as well as engaging in a lot more education. The types of roofs, for example, it may require us to accept that a lot more concrete roofs may have to be built. Of course, concrete homes tend to be hot, and so you then have to find a way to ensure that the design also addresses ventilation. And as well as looking at what other practices have been utilized by our colleagues in the region who face more frequent hurricanes than we have, and to see what measures they've put in place to assist them with ensuring that the citizens build back better and build stronger. So we have examples from Jamaica in the north, Cayman Islands as well, that we can look to see what things have worked and what things have not worked. In some of the conversations within CARICOM, for example, Jamaica has said that they are seriously considering outlawing the use of zinc sheets, simply because they just do not survive, no matter the strength of the hurricane. So those are things we would probably have to consider and look at. Certainly in places like the Cayman Islands, the BVI, there's a lot more concrete roofs that are built so that the roofs just simply don't go, because that's where the bulk of the damage comes. When the roof goes, then essentially you're open to the elements. Everything you have in your house is destroyed, even if the rest of the house remains there. So that is really the approach, but it obviously requires a lot of education, and it may also require finally some direct government intervention in actually helping to pay for the homes which perhaps are then sold. Because one of the challenges we face here is that, unlike many other developing and developed countries where construction is done by large contractors and people buy a home, the culture we have here is people attempt to build a home. And that places them at a significant disadvantage because you're at the mercy of a contractor. And the truth is 9.5 out of every 10 Grenadians knows nothing about house construction, nothing about the building code, nothing about knowing whether the contractor is doing the thing right or not. And in very few instances do people have the resources to be able to actually have a consultant or a supervisor supervise the contractor. So you're at the mercy of the contractor, that's the truth. And in many instances, if the contractors are building at substandard, the homeowner himself would not know. So those are some of the things that we will have to look at from a macro perspective, whether we can actually have perhaps larger type contractors who build the homes, maybe with some sort of government assistance, so that what people do is they buy a home and they pay for the home over a period of time, rather than the enormous pressure and stress of trying to find the land yourself, trying to find a designer, or, well, most people don't even use architects here, you use draftsmen. that poses other challenges in terms of the design of the homes from the get-go. And then the contractors who oftentimes, construction is not regulated in Grenada. If I say I'm a plumber tomorrow, nobody's asking me for a certificate. If I say I'm a mason, nobody's asking me for a certificate. So the challenges you have is you have people who could tell you they're anything, and with the appropriate references, you hire them, and then you find yourself in trouble. So it is going to take some time, but we think there are a number of tools that are available to us to allow us to at least begin the process of changing the culture and improving the building standards on the island. And we believe the damage from Hurricane Beryl was so graphic, and it is clear in many instances that the construction was so substandard that in and of itself is a sufficient incentive for us to get the construction industry to realize that we need to make some significant improvements in our approach to construction and the standards that we use.
Right, thank you, Prime Minister, and thank you, Linda. No other hands at this point, but there is a question regarding the Marketing and National Importing Board. I'm not sure if the Minister for Agriculture, if you'd like to take this one, as it relates to rebuilding, or Prime Minister will take this one, as it relates to rebuilding the agricultural sector. Where does the Marketing and National Importing Board come in all of this?
Right, well, as you recall, last year we had wind down the operations of the Marketing and National Importing Board substantially, and had appointed a technical working group to make recommendations to the Cabinet as to how to proceed with the revitalization of the Marketing and National Importing Board. We have received the report from the technical working group. The next stage is for the Cabinet to consider the report and the recommendations, and then the steps after that will then be agreed on the plan that we can implement. So at this point, I don't think we're in a position to say the specific role that the Marketing and National Importing Board can or cannot play in rebuilding agriculture in general. But I think certainly the Minister and his team could speak to the role that the Ministry of Agriculture is playing and continues to play in terms of assisting our farmers with rebuilding.
Thank you, Prime Minister, for your response. If journalists, if you have one final question, I'll allow you to ask at this point. If not, we'll take some closing remarks from our Prime Minister and other ministers, if you have any. Journalists, do you have any other questions?
My question is to the Minister for Agriculture.
Sure.
The Minister for Finance would have given us a timeline as to when people need to apply and access the incentive. What is the timeline for the agricultural industry incentive? Would it last from 1st June to December or beyond into 25? What is the timeline for that?
No, well, these are one-off payments. In the case of the cash crop farmers, these are one-off payments that we are going to give to them. Initially, the thinking was that we should assist them over a 3-year period, a 3-month period, but we thought that administratively it would create its own problem. So these are one-off payments we're going to give to them. In the case of the others, the livestock and the fisher folks, again, we will try and give them that assistance as quickly as possible. But so within no more than a 3-month period, we should have these things completed.
So all of that will be done after the supplementary budget is approved?
No, these matters are taking place now. We don't need the approval of the supplementary budget to be able to do so.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Linda. Thank you, ministers. Thank you, Prime Minister, for your presentations this morning and updates. We've heard from the Minister for Agriculture. We also heard from the Minister for Finance. We will provide some more updates on our Facebook pages, and of course, you can check out GIS for at our news brief this evening for reminders of what was said this morning in this morning's press conference. So I'll allow Prime Minister, if you want to make final closing statements. Or any of the ministers, if you want to say final parting words before we close off this morning's press conference.
So my only final parting words will be to wish everyone a happy and safe carnival season. Remember, we want you around after Carnival. There's a lot of work to do. There's a beautiful country to continue rebuilding and to live in, so let's be safe. Carnival always have controversy and back, and I'll respect the judge's decision. Our jobs are to be fans. The judge's job are to judge. And so I want to say in advance congratulations to all of those who are in the finals of the various events, and best wishes and best of luck. Enjoy the carnival and be safe. Thank you.
Thank you, Prime Minister. And in closing, I'd like to thank you all for joining us this morning, wherever you are. It is a good day to wear your national colors. All roads lead to Guav. There is a watch party in Guav Town. Kirani takes center stage at 3:20 this afternoon in his 4th Olympic final. We're backing you, Kirani James. You are a legend, and we wish you well and continued success throughout your career. Anderson Peters also takes the stage tomorrow, and his event is scheduled for 2:25, and we will be repping our colors then as well. We'll be flying our flags high. So once again, my name is Neela Etienne, wishing you a golden day.
Thank you.